Good morning, everybody. The sun's up, and for some reason the frogs won't stop croaking today. Irritating. So, they're in the background here. Yeah, well, today I want to talk about ultra-processed food. Yeah, well, maybe some of you remember when the term ultra meant something that was really special. Yeah, well, now it just means something that's really been pounded on. Ultra-processed food. I have a study recently that was done, and I think it had 500,000 people involved in it, so it's pretty good size. And they had shown that the average lifespan of people in the United States today on our standard American diet, that the ultra-processed foods we consume tend to reduce our lifespan by at least 10%. That you can quantitate it. You drink Coca-Cola, eat French fries, and live on McDonald's burgers, and you're probably going to die 10% of time earlier than the guy next to you who has a better diet. So, in a way, you could say that French fries, Coke, and pizza, frozen pizzas are the gun that we use to commit suicide slowly. Well, the problem is if you were tired of living and you wanted to get off the rock, and you just couldn't do it by taking an overdose or shooting yourself. I suppose you could drink yourself to death on Coca-Cola, but the problem is that it's a bad way to go. Usually results in tremendous health side effects, which means you don't, just kind of stop living in your sleep some night and don't wake up. Instead, you probably spend years with your body degraded, hooked to machines and carrying around oxygen bottles and who knows what, shooting up insulin and stuff like that. Miserable existence, especially towards the end. At first, it seems fun, join the Pepsi generation, right? Yeah, we're all having great fun out here, killing ourselves with this stuff. Yeah, so, I remember back sometime in the 1960s when Diet Right soda came out. Cola, I believe, was the first introduction. Well, I was curious, and I was overweight, and I gave it a try, and I drank soda in those days. I was a boy. Was it awful? That was my opinion of it. I said, this stuff's terrible. Who would drink this? And, consequently, with that, the doctors had advised me that they said, don't drink sweet, sugary drinks, and if you do tea and coffee, which I did, even as early as 11 years old, I was a tea and coffee junkie. But, keep the cream and sugar out of it, Doc said. So I listened to him. I don't know how much good it did me, honestly, but what it did do is that my number one beverage on earth is coffee. Number 2 is cold tea. Number 3 is hot tea. Number 4 is water, and maybe along 5th, in an earlier age, beer. Definitely beer was a beverage. I don't hardly drink it anymore. The gout problems created by it, it's not worth it. But yeah, I definitely tend to drink beverages that are unsweetened, unadulterated, straight coffee, straight tea, whether it's hot or cold, plain old water. It's all good. I get a hold of a can of Coca-Cola and drink that stuff, and I get away from it, and my mouth is all sticky. Yeah, it's a nasty actual reaction. Personally, I do not find most of our sugary beverages to be satisfying as far as quenching thirst. Water's a lot better. Tea's even better because tannic acid has that thing, Anyway, so this diet soda stuff, turns out, they bring it around. Supposedly it's going to be healthy for you. You're not going to get all that sugar, and gain weight. But Well, it turns out that the chemicals that are used in the stuff, whether it is stevia, which is, a plant-derived artificial sweetener, or whether it's saccharin or aspartame, it doesn't really matter. These things have some really negative health effects in the system. The artificial sweeteners tend to actually create diabetes. Yeah, that's yeah, they create it, but you can also expect to develop heart conditions from the stuff. Dementia. Yeah, that's another one that's been recently added to the list for you aspartame drinkers. You want to lose your mind? Keep drinking Diet Right soda, or I don't even know what the stuff is today. It's, I guess, Diet Coke Zero or something like this. But yeah, so people were drinking it because they thought it was going to be healthy because they wouldn't be taking in the extra sugar, but it was fooling them because it was creating reactions inside the body that was destroying your body. Yeah, not so good, right? And of course, the sugar drinks, and that doesn't really matter whether it's a natural fruit juice or whether it's Coca-Cola. Although if it's a natural orange juice or a cherry juice, well, there's probably some natural calcium and some minerals and some vitamins in there, yeah, along with all that sugar. But there's also, Coca-Cola has nothing in it of any value. And when I say that, I'm referring to all the other soda pops on earth, not necessarily being specific with just Coke. It's just one of the biggest selling. It's a major one. We all know it. Yeah, so the sugary drinks are no good either. As I say, it doesn't really matter whether it was a natural apple juice product. You've pulled most all the fiber out of that, and you still have some minerals and vitamins, but you got a lot of sugar. Whereas on an apple, you get the fiber too, and it's not as concentrated. There's a difference there. And so these juicing actually makes fruit worse for you. Yeah, fruit's generally considered healthy. Yeah, well, I guess the refined grains, we've been on that one for quite a while. Everybody by now knows that eating Wonder Bread, is not healthy. It's not good. Here we've taken, some sort of a grain. Usually it's wheat, although there are breads made from other grains. But you take a wheat grain and they've removed almost everything except the starch. That's how you make white flour. Then you pulverize it. Well, and then you turn around, then you have to begin to re-add a few things like all the vitamins or minerals that were lost. Yeah, I think about this one as far as how healthy is this for you. You got a bowl full of white flour, and you got a bowl full of just whole wheat kernels, If you took the whole wheat kernels and started chewing on them, as long as your teeth are good, they probably won't cause you any problem in your digestive system. Most likely. It's got a lot of fiber there, protein, and other valuable things because it hasn't been extracted. They are complete. Plus, you grind them in your teeth. Only a part of that is going to actually go through your system. The rest is out the other end. But, you take a bowl full of flour and try eating that. Mix it with a little water maybe so you can get it down. But imagine what that does in your system. It's like glue. It's a paste. It's sticky. It is lacking nutrients, has no fiber, etc., etc. So the refined grains, whole grains are good for us. Refined grains are not good for us. All right. Yeah, well, when it comes to the sugars and the seeds and stuff like this, I've occasionally been pounded on by viewers because I was using a bag of Amazon Mexican-made fruit slices, gummy fruit slices to inject THC into to use, as medical sleep aids. And I got hammered on by one character who, I got corn syrup in him. Well, he's actually wrong. Mexico doesn't use corn syrup. These were Mexican-made. They were cane sugar. Whether that's better or worse, corn syrup is notoriously bad for us. True. There's no argument there. and it's in everything, ubiquitous. Boy, oh boy. And as far as the oils, I had suspended the Delta 8 hash oil into a vegetable oil and used that to insert into the candies. And I had suggested a number of different oils, including olive oil or avocado oil, but I got nailed because I also included oils from seeds. And this is leading in because humans have consumed seeds since the beginning of time. The seeds had oils in them, all right? It's not the seeds, and mostly it's not really the oils. It's the way the seeds are grown, and it's the way the oils are processed, which really makes them bad. Most all seed oils come from genetically engineered crops, and the crops are often used with agricultural chemicals that are pretty scary, and so you have crop residues on the things, so the way they're grown is not good. And then in turn the way they're extracted, now if you have something that's like hot screw expelled or cold pressed, this is different than like when you got a corn kernel. Oil doesn't come out of corn easy at all. Yeah, you really got to go to town to get it out of there. And generally, they dissolve everything with solvents. And the oil floats up and they skim it off. Well, but yeah, the solvent extraction of seed oils is very common. And it's not nice. And the way the seeds are grown is often not nice. On the other hand, I figure if you're using organic product, so it was grown in a more appropriate manner, and it's not a GMO, it doesn't probably have too many chemical contaminations, and if then it was extracted in a reasonable way, pressing it out cold, screwing it out hot, something on that order, where you're not using nasty chemicals and things like this, you got a product there that's healthier, at least healthier. It's pure fat, and so a lot of us, we live on food that's been bathed in that stuff. Deep fried food, man. It's like onion rings, French fries, chicken tenders. I even go to a Chinese restaurant and I'm going to get, whether it's sweet and sour pork or Korean chicken or whatever it is. It's all been deep fried before it's dumped in the sauce. This is how we end up with all this brown food. And so, it has to do with volume. How much food fried in that oil are you actually eating? How many foods are you eating that have these materials hidden in them? The cornstarch, corn syrup, or the oils are hidden in the food. Hydrogenated fats and all this. It's all bad news, all right? But I disagree with people that tell me that all seed oils are bad for us. I don't agree with you at all. But bear in mind, there's something really quite important from my point of view as to why I feel the way I do about this. I'm cautious about what I eat, even more cautious ever since I got COVID, and I've had to try to recover my gut biome. So, I have rules and guidelines around my eating habits for sure. None of them are religion. That is, they can all be violated, and I'll do that without guilt. Yes, because my attitude towards everything is all things in moderation. So you eat a little corn syrup and something, it ain't gonna hurt you. Now you're eating products that are containing this stuff constantly, it may do some damage to you. But the body is tolerant. It's capable of handling things in moderate amounts. It's when things get tipped in the scale to everything goes to ultra-processed food. It's 70% of the food on the store shelves today. If you walk into a store like Safeway here or in Hilo, 70% of the food on those shelves qualifies as ultra processed. That's huge. That means you only got a 30% chance of finding anything that's healthy, edible in the store. And then, on top of it, 60% of the American diet is comprised of ultra-processed food in the average American household. I mean, think about it. Soft drinks. Okay, very good. Fried foods. All of this is ultra-processed. French fries, fast food, burgers. It's all ultra-processed food. The cereals you're eating in the morning, supposedly healthy for you, it's ultra-processed food, 70%, and then 60% of our diet on the average American is comprised of this stuff. Now, my background is a little odd, maybe. I really am not the average American as far as my diet is concerned. I grew up in a household with German grandparents, you see. And both of the grandparents had been through the Great American Depression, which affects people, believe me, it does. And then Grandpa, well, he'd been through another depression in Europe before World War I. And he actually ended up here, both escaping Kaiser Wilhelm's draft and the Depression in Europe. My brother was a very picky eater. Yes, there were only a small amount of few things on his list. Now, he's younger than me, and today he has more health problems than I do. Perhaps why, who knows. But every time Bob refused to eat something, he's not going to eat that. No, I don't like that stuff. We'd have to listen to Grandpa. And Grandpa would tell us about wandering across Europe as far away as Mongolia and Turkey, and how we were starving. We were so hungry we would peel the bark from trees and boil it to eat. He might have done that once. I don't know how true his stories were, but what I do know is that we were encouraged, at least as children, to tolerate eating almost anything that was set in front of you because you should be glad it was setting there. Now, that's the point. See, when you have authority figures, parents in your family who had, incurred starvation at times. My family had seen starvation, parts of it anyway. Some of the rest of it probably wouldn't have been as well off if my Uncle Johnny hadn't driven a produce truck during the Great Depression. Yeah, sacks of potatoes would occasionally fall off the back of the truck into the family's yard, Yeah, Johnny took care of people. So I kind of grew up in this background of eat the food. I don't care whether you like it or not. You need to eat the food. We're not going to replace it with something else just because you have odd tastes. Allergies are another story, but odd tastes are something else. Well, life moves along, and the 60s come about, and then, the hippies are all pushing organic food and natural foods and all this, and then I just happened to become associated with a man who was my mentor for years. He was the owner of the only local health food store in Palatine, Illinois, and Freddie, he knew all kind of stuff, about health foods, about microbiomes. Freddie knew a lot in that whole area. We used to hang out. We'd garden together. I'd swap my dad's homemade wine for tomatoes from Freddie's garden and stuff from my mom to can, and I knew him for years. We were good friends. We were well associated, and Fred's influence on me was also pretty strong as far as what to eat, what not to eat, and so on. And so that also affected me. I definitely moved into organic growing and organic food at that point in my life. So that really spun me off into kind of where I am today. In a way, my whole lifestyle is based on diet. Yeah, it's in a way it is. The green garden guy, man. We're talking about food here. It's all based on diet. We can't live without it, right? You got to have the food. Yeah. So, like I say, though, 60% of us really are living on an ultra-processed food diet. I recall shopping with my grandmother in the 1950s. Now, we did not have nice farmers markets in Chicago or anything like that. The only thing you really had around was there generally was a corner store somewhere that had a little bit of stuff, kind of a micro 7-Eleven or something on that order. They were family owned. And then you had a few chain grocery store. A&P was the one that was 5 blocks away from our house. Grandma would fold out her little cart and we would go to the store. I'd follow her around, and in those days all the produce, almost everything, it was in big piles. Yeah, you go in, the table, there was a table of cabbages, there'd be a pile of this and that, and you go through and you'd pick this stuff and, you'd throw it on a scale, weigh it, put it in your cart or whatever. But, even the meat counter, it was cello wrap, man. It was a plastic wrap stuff. The meat was all sitting in there. They had a butcher behind the counter. You'd go, give me that steak right there. And he'd wrap it in paper with string, that was life. Well, we didn't have a lot of stuff that was in boxes. Breakfast cereals were, there were cookies and snacks. There were, but just not as much. There wasn't as much. I might even venture to say that maybe in my youth, the store that my grandma shopped in, it might have had 60% of the content was not ultra-processed. Not ultra-processed. Probably, I remember the fish markets. Yeah, Lake Michigan had an active fishery at one time before we realized all the fish in the lake were so full of mercury that if you stuck a salmon out in the cold, you could tell how cold it was by reading the mercury in its eyeball. But, yeah, they had a lot of lake perch, lake trouts, and stuff like that. There was a whole lot of fish that was available, and there were fish markets. And there were guys in white coats standing behind a counter with a bunch of fish laying on ice with a price tag in front of them, and you go, give me those perch right there. And, and maybe, if you had the right butcher, you could get the guy to skin and fillet the fish for you, which was really nice. That's a process. Otherwise, you took the fish home the way it was, and you processed it. Gordon's or Mrs. Booth's fish sticks of questionable origin, coated in breadcrumbs, with hydrogenated vegetable oils and stuff like this, in a box with a picture of a guy in a fisherman's coat. It didn't exist. We really didn't have them yet. The whole frozen and processed food industry kind of gotten started during the late 1950s, but that was a real thing that happened during the 60s and 70s. It just exploded. Now, in a way, it was a good thing for the American diet. I have said this before, because the frozen foods brought us a lot of produce and stuff. If you got a bag of frozen strawberry or a bag of frozen blueberries or a bag of frozen green beans, these are much better than any other alternative other than having the same thing fresh. Yeah. So it was a good thing. Yeah, I do believe it had the potential, at least, to improve the American diet. I do buy some frozen prepared, I wouldn't call them processed, but I'd call it prepared foods, especially since I started this microbiome diet, because I don't always feel like cooking, right? Yeah, right. It's work. And the diet I've been on is even more work because I'm combining more different materials and being more specific about what I'm putting there. And so to avoid saying, oh man, let's just go out for a pizza, I've stacked the freezer full of some very, very healthy, natural type entrees, some steamer things and this and that are not heavily processed. They're cut vegetables, cut pieces of chicken, the sauce, you put it in the microwave, nuke it, bring it out, eat it. They're pretty good. And there isn't a lot of processing involved there. These are fairly decent meals. Top of my head, Kevin's, I believe, is one of the products. There's a few others that she had brought in here. A couple of them were really good, but I had to complain about the amount of plastic that came in the box that they used for a microwave steamer. That steamer was so good that I have actually been recycling them for cooking broccoli and things in the microwave now for months on end. Yeah, that's a waste. Winning or losing, I swear you can't. Anyhow, there we go about ultra-processed food. And again, that food pyramid and what we're supposed to be eating, what's good for us, what isn't good for us, this has been constantly changing throughout my entire life. Yeah, if we track it back, and I can show you what the government and other people have said about food for years, and then they change their mind, and then they change their minds again, and then more studies, and it changes again. Okay, this has been constantly in flux throughout my life. And because it has been constantly in flux, I don't make religion out of it. And, people who tend to, I find them rather annoying. Yeah, I find vegans very annoying human beings sometimes. If they keep it to themselves, they're just fine. Your diet's your diet, I'm out here talking about it. Why? Well, as I'm the Green Garden guy, this is my job. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but this is my job. And my attitude towards it is eat anything and everything that comes in front of you, but eat it in moderation, and some things are going to be a whole lot better for you than others. And if you focus on the ones that are better for you, you'll probably live longer, and you might just pass away in your sleep peacefully instead of being hooked to miles of tubes and pumps and oxygen bottles. And yeah, you don't want that stuff. I've been in the hospital before. I can't stand it. I don't know about you. Yeah, I'd be the first one to order up enough Coca-Cola to kill myself with if I ended up stuck in a hospital like that. Okay. Hey, y'all, hang loose, folks. Aloha.